What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Art Shack. So I think it's about time that I start doing another real-time drawing series. They seem to be working out pretty well, and a lot of people really enjoy them, so I see no reason why not to start doing another one. So this one is going to be Summer in the Mountains. Here is a sketch that I worked off of, and this is going to be sort of the idea of the whole sketch and everything. So let me explain what's going on in here. Let me get rid of this ruler. Okay. So, it's a very, very light sketch, not a whole lot of detail work. So, the entire focus of this is going to be this tree here. So this tree is going to be pretty light in contrast to everything else. So, back here I have a rock wall with a small waterfall kind of coming down. So it's going to come down here, and then brick again, come down here. And then it's going to find its way into this area, which will flow off of this cliff and into this river that's way down. So we're going to be way up in the mountains on this one. And on this side, there's going to be some more rocks, things like that, with some trees kind of hanging out up in here. So there's going to be trees up here as well, just to kind of frame everything in. And there's going to be a large tree in here. So all these trees, I don't have any leaves on them, but they will have leaves on them. So that's pretty much what I've gotten so far. So as far as the tonal values that's going to be happening in this, the entire sky is going to be pretty much like a gradient, so I'm not too worried about anything there. And these mountains in the background are going to be fairly light. There's not going to be too much going on in there. This entire rock formation, all up in the foreground and up is this as well, it's all going to be very dark, which will leave this tree in some highlights and some sun, which will make it lighter compared to everything else, which will make it pop out. So that's my general idea going with this one. So I'm going to keep this just pretty much right by my side, just so I can keep it there and go off of it for reference. So let me explain what is going on here. So as you can probably see in this one, I have some, actually you can't really see them anymore, I have some guidelines, and I've gotten quite a few comments asking if the guidelines help or not. The quick answer is yes, they're very good. It's something I've been implementing more recently within my work, especially when I draw from a reference. It really helps me to accurately place object within my drawing, but I don't think I use the grid in a traditional way. I kind of customize it to the way of the drawing that I'm going to be referencing off of. So in this one, you can see I have a central divide, and then a ½ inch on each side I also have another line, and that is because the tree will start at that ½ inch point and then work its way to the middle. So that way I don't accidentally make this tree go all the way to the other side of the drawing. I don't want to do that. So it just really helps me to accurately place everything. And with a central divide, I know that these rocks are kind of in the middle-ish. They're a bit past the middle, but I kind of push them back a bit, so that just helps me to push put everything where it's supposed to be. And I also have a habit of making things larger than they're supposed to be, so doing a grid really helps me to reserve my shape, size, and things like that, so it helps me to much accurately place everything. So it's just one of those little methods that helps me out, and feel free to use it. I think it'll help a lot of people out. So I've done the same thing here. So this point here is going to be 5 inches wide and 6½ inches tall. That's about where I want to be with this one. I don't want to make this one too large. I want to try and keep this whole real-time series within a timely manner, but still I want to give you a nice, accurate representation of a drawing. So this video is mainly going to be focused on the entire sketch portion, and then we'll see how it goes from there. So I'm going to use a HB pencil, but normally when I do a sketch I'll use a 2H. It just it's easier to erase and the lines are much lighter, so you can easily draw over them. But I'm going to use an HB so that the camera will pick up what I'm doing much better, so that way you can kind of see what's going on. So in this first area, this is going to be like the foreground, right where the water is going to be, and this is also where the tree is going to be. So I have an area like this, and there's going to be some rocks and things like that kind of hanging out everywhere in this one. There's going to be a lot of them. There tends to be a lot of rocks near any sort of water source in general, not always. At least in this picture there will be. So it comes out, kind of curves back in, and works its way around again. Then there's a rock that kind of hangs out over in here. And then this all kind of comes around like this. And then right here is about where that cliff edge will be. Something like that. So this will come around. And then you got this side of rocks that will come up. And this is going to be a rather pointy rock. One good practice to do is, if you're drawing along with me, to keep looking back at the video about every 5 seconds or so, or pause if you ever need to. As long as you're looking back every 5-6 seconds or so, you're really familiarizing yourself with what you're trying to replicate, and it really helps the accuracy of it. Or it just really helps your understanding of what is going on. And that's what I'm doing right now with my little sketch. I'm just trying to accurately place everything the way that they need to be. And I'm just taking my time with it. So right here is where that waterfall is it's gonna be a very, very small one that's kind of hanging out right in here. And there's gonna be a large rock that's gonna be right in here, and that's gonna be that waterfall is gonna be right in here. Then we can draw or suggest some rocks behind it. Things like that. Alright, now this tree, like I said, it's going to start very close to this 1/2 inch line. And I'll draw it about this high up for now. And then here's the other side of it. Alright, now that we have that, we can erase out this line. And that'll push this forward. Alright, and there's going to be some roots kind of hanging out in and around this tree. But these are more of the late finishing, polishing details. So I'm not going to worry too much about it now. But I just want to put those lines in there just to kind of remind me that that's something that I would like to do later on. So there's little things that I'll do within my drawings that'll kind of give me clues as to what I was trying to do initially. That way later on I can still see those marks and remember that I want to do this or I want to do that. So if I want to do roots in here, I'll kind of start drawing them, but not really. So I'll just kind of remember later on that that's what I wanted to do. Alright, so up in here, there's going to be a rock wall. And I'm not sure how far I want to bring it out yet. So I need to establish where everything's going to be. So I'm noticing that I'm off a bit over here. So it's not that big of a deal right now. So the sketch, I think the sketch is probably the most important part of a drawing. It's sort of the skeletal form, the foundation, whatever you want to call it. It's the building blocks of your entire drawing. It's the underpainting. So if that's off, everything else is going to kind of be off because of that. It's like trying to build a house, but then realizing that you didn't build the foundation correctly. So the entire house can be perfect, but if that foundation isn't perfect, then the house is not going to be structurally sound. So you can kind of think of the same analogy for this. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to be close, and then you can fix some things here and there later on. But I like to have things fairly close to where I want them to be early on. It helps my accuracy in the later points of the drawing. Alright, so that's better. So these guidelines, you can really help to eyeball where things should be, just by kind of using little measurements. So like this is a 1/2 inch, that's an inch, and that's like 2 inches. So this is like about 2 inches in here, 2 inches there, roughly. And I can use those rough measurements against my reference and just kind of see where things should be. So this is going to be my little waterfall, so I'll erase some points out right there. That way I can see that. And then there's a bunch of rocks in and around that. Alright, so there's also going to be a bit of a peak coming out over here. And I'll come back in. And then right around here is about where I'll have my rock wall kind of living in its space. And then the top of this is going to be fairly jagged. Then right about here, actually it's a little bit too close to the tree. I want to give it a little bit of space. So right about in here is where my waterfall is going to be. Now, this isn't a large waterfall, it's just a little one. So that's going to work its way down into a rock that is sort of shaped like this. That way the waterfall can kind of work its way down again. Just like that. Then that will come all the way down into some rocks that are about yay big. And you can kind of see how that's taking its shape. And then with these rocks, I'll just kind of quickly suggest a little bit of detail work. There's also going to be rocks over here. Let me create some more interesting shapes on them. Now just keep in mind that this portion of the drawing here is going to be the central focusing area. Over here, if I draw too much attention, it's going to kind of be a lost cause. So it's not going to be overly detailed, it's going to be slightly detailed, I guess you could say. Okay, so now working its way up along this cliff is going to be some trees and things like that. So there's going to be a dead tree kind of living right here, along with another tree that's just kind of hanging out. And this is the one that's going to be pretty tall and just hanging out. So I just want to put a little bit of detail on that now so I don't forget about it. Okay, and then this tree is going to sort of work its way up. And there will, of course, be some branches and things like that kind of coming out here and there. And this tree will just kind of come on up like that. Now what I'm noticing is that my tree's a little too wiggly here. So you can easily fix that. So that's why the sketch portion is fairly important. Still a little too wiggly here, so. Sometimes getting something to look just right takes a little bit of time. There's just a lot of curve going on right here. I'm trying to take that out. See, it's getting there. And then the outer portions of this tree gonna be pretty jagged. It's a fairly old tree, so there's gonna be a lot of texture going into this. That's why it's gonna be a fairly important piece within this. So there's gonna be a lot of moss kind of growing around on it. Just make it a little bit narrower at the top there. There's of course going to be some branches coming out of it, like I had before I erased them. Not too many though. There's just a few working its way around. So this branch, it's going to really kind of stretch its way into the middle of this. And there's also going to be some trees over here. I'm just going to suggest those just with some pencil lines of what I want to see. This is going to be more like a very steep hill than anything else. And then there's also going to be some trees over here. Very, very dark ones that are living on top of this cliff. And then what these trees will do within this is create a very, very dark corner, which will again focus all attention over this way. So there's a lot of thought that goes into a lot of these. So just having the central focus of the drawing is a very important element within it. Just something to keep in mind. Even the direction of your grass and things like that can really help convey where the center of interest is as well. Alright, so I'm just kind of lightly suggesting where that's going to be. Alright, so the last element of this is really the background, which is going to be a riverbank kind of hanging out like this. Let me zoom in a bit. This can get a little complicated a bit. Not too much though. It's just going to be pretty small in comparison to everything else. Alright, so this will work its way up and over like that. Then there's going to be a large mountain coming up over here. This one is going to come up all the way like that. Then there's going to be another mountain back in here. And then there's going to be one way in the distance. Just like that. And this one's really far away. Just like that. Alright, so we'll have the other side of the riverbank kind of coming around. Then you can just put some lines kind of showing the water flow. Nothing too much though. And this is going to be kind of the shoreline, and then these are all going to be full of trees. So just kind of hinting at that now. But you can always change that later. If you don't want these to be full of trees, you don't have to. You can just draw some rock details. Either way. So here is that waterfall. So we're looking behind the waterfall, so we're not really going to be seeing the water flowing off of it. But there's just going to be like a little pond right here that will flow off into there. And of course you got all these rocks. Then this rock wall. These are also going to be some rocks. So things like that is all going to come later on. These are all just kind of detail sort of deals. More the polishing details rather. For the very, very end. So we got a nice little pond right here. And there's just going to be some rocks and stones kind of all around it. There's also going to be a log kind of hanging out right in here. And that'll be in the dirt, partially buried. Maybe have a bit more of a log over here. Then over here it's just gonna be more of that rock formations and things like that. just gonna quickly suggest some rock shapes coming down. Same with over here. This is a pretty steep rock face coming down. So these vertical lines will really help to suggest that. But, alright, so I think I'm going to leave it off at that. So that's the general sketch right there. So I'll zoom back out so you can kind of see everything that we've established here in comparison to this one. So you can see it's fairly close. I've put a little more detail work into that just to see how things would look, possibly later on within the drawing, but just to get myself some ideas. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. So I'm going to leave it off right there, and next video I'm going to start in at the sky as well as some general shading all around just to kind of set the tones for what is going to be happening within this. So I hope you all enjoyed this one, and I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all later, everyone. Take care.